And then the other thing was really just a comment. It's not that I don't support Blues Fest, but I was disappointed to hear that their kickoff event is going to be held in Collingwood. And I know we've been a significant sponsor for a number of years, and I just think that it would be nice to see it stay local if we continue to be a significant sponsor. And those were just comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bray. And not seeing any more comments at this time. Oh, I'm sorry, Your Worship. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say in response to the CAO's report, I did speak to Chair Lloyd from the school board the other day, and she thought it was great that this is coming forward and that we're starting to think about this now, because it will help as we start planning over the next couple of years to establish the high school here. So she thought it was a great step. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Wells, and then Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Mark. I wasn't really going to say anything, but since the item's just coming up for a bit of comment, in my previous life with the Ministry of Education, the Haliburton High School, as part of a major renovation and addition, did put in a performing arts center as part of the expansion and renovation up there. So Haliburton High School has quite a significant community resource in that thing. So I too was excited to see this as a possibility.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Councillor Kinney. Yeah, I'm excited to see this initiative also. It's actually a continuation of what councils have done in the past. Anyone that's a few people on council that have from about probably 12 years or so ago under Mayor Patterson, we made significant offers to the school board at that time when the Liberal government was in to partner with the school board. And I'm very happy to see the revival of this. And I know we've all been talking to different levels of government, as I have, just, keeping our ear to the ground and keeping everyone apprised of our initiative for a high school in Wasaga Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Can I ask the question again? Any more comments? Not seeing any, but that was great dialogue, people. All in favor, please? Thank you. That passes unanimously, 7-0. Now, moving down to down to 3.3.9, and I'll read the motion that the Community Services section of the Coordinated Committee does hereby receive the Recreation, Events, and Facility Monthly Activity Report for information. Is there any comments on this before I go for a mover and a seconder? Not seeing any. May I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Wells and Deputy Mayor Bray. Not seeing any more comments. All in favor? Thank you very much. That passes unanimously, 7-0. And this time, I believe this takes me down to the Public Works section, and I'll be turning.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Yep, sorry, go ahead.
That was the one that I declared on, so I had my camera off, so it was 6-0 for that vote.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll change that right now on my document. 6-0 then. Thank you so much for that comment. Now, it will be my pleasure to turn the chair over to Councillor Watson. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kinney. We are now in the Public Works section of the Coordinated Committee. Under unfinished business, we had one item, and it is being addressed today under 3.3.7, I believe, in today's agenda. At this point, I'm only seeing one item pulled, which is 4.3.4. So I will read the motion for the consent agenda. Resolved that the Public Works section of Coordinated Committee hereby receives the April 14th, 2022 consent agenda items 4.3 through to 4.4, and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. May I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Any discussion? If not, those in favor? Thank you. That is approved unanimously. We'll now move to 4.3.4, and I believe that was Councillor Boulanger that has pulled that.
Thank you, Chair Watson. I pulled this item because after it was announced that there was a leak in the force main, I was contacted by a couple of residents expressing some concern, and given that it is a risk to the environment and it is potentially a considerably expensive, unbudgeted expense that may be covered by a debenture. I thought it would be good if our Director of Public Works, if Kevin could do a public update. And in addition, I just wanted to understand the process of when we decide. It indicated that we do have reserves, and of course that is for emergency items like this, but then it went on to say that it would possibly covered through a debenture, which would mean taking on additional expense. So I just wanted to know the process and timing that council would make that decision. So Kevin, if I'll turn it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Boulanger. Just by way of summary then, as indicated in my report, we've had to investigate and respond to two major issues with both the water main and the sewage force main river crossings at Skinnertown Bridge. The water main was successfully isolated over a month ago. However, more recently, a leak had surfaced, as you had indicated about the active force main. This force main is a very critical piece of our collection system. It services approximately 50% of the town's wastewater flows from the west end. And it's the lone pipe that delivers that wastewater to the pump station under the river. Attempts were made to repair the leaky force main using traditional methods. However, the integrity of the pipe, as well as the bolted flange connection where the transition is between the polyethylene and the ductile iron, was far beyond a state of repair. Staff have been able to secure the joint with a concrete collar as an interim measure to reduce the likelihood of full collapse or break. And that is why you still see the traffic control still at the Riverbend intersection with the left turn lane restricted. We do have a temporary pumping system in place to control that leak and contain that leak, which is being pumped back into the upstream manhole. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've engaged several pipe suppliers, advisors, and consultants to help us evaluate our alternatives. You'll note in the report that we are recommending to expedite the detailed design and approvals in an effort to undertake this work immediately. Again, the concrete collar is a temporary measure, and we could very well see a similar failure on the east side of the river if we don't act immediately. Construction estimates, as indicated in the report, will be further refined as we initiate detailed design and seek feedback from drilling contractors and specialists in the area, particularly as it relates to construction staging and the logistics around how that will work. We do know there is availability challenges with pipe materials and fittings as well. So that is another factor that needs to be considered when we do tender the work. As we do advance the detailed design, we'll be looking at redundancy in that system. Fortunately, we have redundancy in the water distribution system, but the sewage collection system needs to have some redundancy in it as we look ahead. Also, we'll be looking at long-term capacity needs in terms of how we satisfy demand and build out in the west end as we go through the detailed design. Following this resolution, Ainley Group will be, as they are working behind the scenes right now, we do have a fairly aggressive schedule to get the design underway consultation with the NVCA as well, the MNRF, because the riverbed is their jurisdiction. So there is easement requirements and there's special permissions required there. We're looking to advance a short tendering process or an RFQ process with specialized contractors and hopefully have this underway by June. There's still a bit of time to take to fully design the process, but we're confident that we can meet these type timelines with the team that we have. But again, in the meantime, we'll continue to monitor the concrete collar and the sump and the containment system that we have in place. And we'll advance as soon as approvals are received. And we'll come back to committee with the pricing for the contractor. And we'll seek authorization at that time as well.
Councillor Belanger, then the mayor, and then Councillor Foster.
I believe the mayor had her card up first, so I'll let the mayor make comment.
Oh, okay, thank you. It is just a comment to say thank you to our Public Works crew who were on site in short time and were there for a long time, but the smiles and took it well, and they gave it their all, and recognized the importance of the river and making sure that that wasn't impacted. Also J&B, who was on site, and quick action, and thank you to all involved.
Belanger?
Yes, thank you, Chair Watson. Yes, just to Kevin, maybe to clear up, the one resident that had spoken to me just asked if the failure could have had anything to do with all of the work that had been done on the bridge, that there was a bit of vibration and that type of thing. So I don't think that was the case, but I don't know if it was is it age or settling or what we believe caused the actual fault.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair, definitely not a result from construction activities or vibration, Councillor.
Councillor Foster, was it your card up or?
It was. Thank you, Councillor Watson. And again, thank you to Kevin and all the crew involved in dealing with this. My question is more a comment, and it related to basically your first line. It's the only crossing for half the people or half the residents in town. So while we're looking at this, and much like ourselves, our infrastructure is aging and not always gracefully. So my question is there planning for more redundancy in the system going forward? And again, because I do think, one of the things we used to say is the oldest piece of infrastructure we had in the ground is 45 years. And well, that's getting on now. So just wonder from a planning point of view to avoid this kind of thing in the future, if there is any redundancy being planned into our system for that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, again, through design, we'll look at whether it's twinning two pipes or one larger pipe. But what it comes down to is really the pipe material that was used for that crossing. It's a thin-walled polyethylene that's not used anymore. And if it were to today's standards in terms of the high-density polyethylene, the repair very well could have been made, and we would have been able to make that repair effectively. So certainly, the pipe material comes into play as to why we cannot make that repair today, but redundancy will be considered. And, the more pipes we do put under the ground, certainly the higher the cost. So that'll be part of the evaluation criteria that we follow through with the design, and that will come forward at committee before we award the contract.
Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Wells.
Yeah, just a thought came to mind, Kevin. I believe at the Main Street Bridge, all of that piping is carried on the understructure of the bridge itself. in terms of long-term environmental potential, is there any thought or why not to abandon the under river pipelines and mount them to the Schoonertown Bridge where they would be fully exposed and fully accessible at all times?
Certainly that was one of the options we considered, Councillor. There load with that alternative. And having recently expanded the bridge, we've already maximized a lot of the cantilevered weight on that south abutment. But certainly that's been evaluated conceptually with our structural consultants already, and is part of the evaluation criteria that we've undertaken to recommend the directional drilling. And most methods are directional drilled under the river. You try and avoid having things suspended from your bridge, because when you do need to make repairs on the bridge, they're now in the way, and you're trying to find alternate means to get it across. But directional drilling is
We've lost you, Kevin. It's frozen.
Yeah, I think we have some internal internet issues. The council internet is fine, but it's the other internet that staff use to connect that is having some issues. So perhaps we'll message Kevin and see if he can join with his phone.
I'm okay with the response. He's in my mind covered my question, so I don't need to go any further with it.
Is there any other? I see no other cards. I'll just make a quick comment. I've attended on site at the the construction where the leak was. As Chair of Public Works, Director Lalonde gave me an update late Friday just to tell me in detail what was happening and that a report would be coming forward. And the silver lining in this to me is in Director Lalonde's report, where it says paragraph, future development and growth will be considered as part of the detailed design. Specifically, it is noted that the town's recent update to the sanitary sewer collection system model has already confirmed upsizing the subject force main in the future to 20-inch diameter or equivalent twin pipes to accommodate future growth for the town, including anticipated growth nodes under consideration within the official plan update. So in effect, this was going to be happening anyway. It's accelerated a little bit, and it also takes care of any possibility that we would have any environmental damage. So it's I really commend our Director, Public Works, and all the contractors on site to attack this very vigorously. So seeing no other comments, and was there anything else, Kevin? I see you're back. Oh, you're muted. Nope, still having some issues, I guess. Okay, I will read the motion that the Public Works section of Coordinated Committee does hereby recommend to Council that it approve the emergency works for the replacement of the sewage force main and water main river crossings located in the vicinity of Schoonertown Bridge, and further that an exemption to the procurement policy be granted such that the procurement for the emergency works be completed in accordance with the request for quotation process to selected specialized drilling contractors with reasonable effort to obtain a minimum of 3 quotations. And further that the Ainley Group be awarded the contract for engineering consulting services to complete detailed design, including environmental assessment and agency approvals, contract administration, and inspection services for such emergency works. And further that the general water and wastewater reserve be drawn initially to cover emergency repair costs to date, plus such emergency works and engineering services associated therewith, with further consideration of a debenture upon updating of the forecast. May I have a mover? Councillor Belanger is moving. Deputy Mayor Bray is seconding it. Those in favor? That is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the public works section. If you want to take a break or just move into development services at this point, just move ahead. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Watson. I'll go into the development services section, noting that Deputy Mayor Bray has declared a conflict of interest on item 5.6.2. If there's nothing else related to those, and I will ask the clerk or deputy clerk, because again, I'm using a phone and can only see kind of 4 people at a time, if they could just let me know if votes are unanimous or not. Under unfinished.
Councillor Foster?
Yes.
It was actually 5.5.2, the open patios.
Thank you for that. Okay, so under unfinished business, there are a few items there. We then slide into the consent agenda, noting again correctly, the 5.5.2 has been pulled. But aside from that, I will also, and I know staff are on here, I'll note that we don't have kind of the statistics for the building this month, but I had talked to Doug, and he had suggested that it will be on a well, he didn't suggest, he told me it would be on an upcoming agenda. I'm just wondering if Doug or Danny would like to, just with indulgence of committee, just give us a little update of some sort.
Good morning, Councillor Foster. Danny is out of the office today, but I can do that for the committee. Let me just catch the page where I've got the data. Last month, we had a total of 2 new building permits and 2 new accessory dwelling units. All told, currently, we are at 134 units at the end of March. We are expecting another banner year this year, albeit it's been a slow month in March. We're not expecting the slowness to be the norm.
Okay, thank you for that update. And the clerk has just advised me it will be coming to the coordinated committee, and so we'll deal with it then. All right, thank you for that. Does anyone else have any comments on anything on the consent agenda before I read the motion and call it? And clerk, Madam Clerk, if there's anyone with the card up, could you inform me? Okay, Councillor Belanger, you would like to comment on 5.6.2? No, yes, 5.6.2, I believe. Go ahead, Joe. Have I frozen?
I had requested to comment on 5.4.2, not 5.6.2.
Sorry, my bad. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it was just we're receiving a letter from the City of Waterloo requesting to build it right the first time, which is really requesting provincial legislation that would make development greener and further reduce greenhouse emissions. And I felt that that's important, and certainly that municipalities have to take a leadership role, especially with their own infrastructure, to build it right the first time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else who's requesting to speak at this moment? Or no? Okay, good, thank you. I can read too. All right, I'm going to go back then to the consent agenda piece. Thank you. Resolved that the Development Services section of the Coordinated Committee hereby receives the April 14th, 2022 consent agenda items 5.4 through 5.6, and that all recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. And as we know, that's 5.5.2. I'll look for a mover and seconder, please. And I see Councillor Belanger's card. I'm going to slide over here. Councillor Wells, and all those in favor, please. And it looks like, yeah, that's a full house. So we have it unanimous. Thank you. Then on to item 5.5.2, which is the item on, no, it isn't, 5. One moment. Is it 5? Sorry, I need some clarification here.
5.5.2 is the patio music program.
Okay.
And who pulled that, Laura? Deputy Mayor Bray pulled that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, I must have an older version of it. I've got it as 5.3.2. That must have been on the original agenda. Anyway, okay, so thank you. This is noting that Council or Deputy Mayor has removed herself from the meeting, or turned off the video anyway. This is on the music program update for the Coordinated Committee. That Development Services section of the Coordinated Committee received the Open Patios Music Program Update Report for information. And further, the Development Services section of Coordinated Committee recommend to Council that it approve expanding the Patios music program to include performances on any day of the week as eligible. And I'll look for a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Wells and Councillor Belanger. And all those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. With that pulls the end to the Development Services section. I will turn it over to the Deputy Mayor, who will do.
Chair Foster, I
Yes.
believe Councillor Belanger has his card up to speak.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My apologies, Councillor Belanger. Go ahead, please.
Well, that's okay, Chair Foster. If the council would indulge me, I had stroked it out, but I had originally asked to make comment on 4.1 in Public Works, but I was told by the Deputy Clerk that Kevin Lalonde was going to speak to it. But all it was is under unfinished business, there was an item on skateboard park noise, which had been brought up by a number of residents. And in one of the items, I think it was 3.3.7, but I don't have it written down here. We had undertaken to spray foam under all of the ramps, which would reduce the noise. So I don't think it addressed all of the residents' concern, but it was a step forward in trying to resolve that issue. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I saw that on the report. Anyway, at that point, I'm going to pass it over to the Deputy Mayor, please, to do the General Government section, unless we need a break.
Probably not. I think we can usually make it the first hour. Welcome to the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee. All items listed below will be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. Today I have items 6.2.7 and 6.2.8 that have been pulled for separate discussion. If there are no others, I'll read the motion. Resolved that the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee hereby receives the April 14th, 2022 consent agenda, items 6.2 through to 6.3, and that the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding the items pulled from the motion, which will be voted on separately. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Foster, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. And we will move to item 6.2.7, which is the Director of Legislative Services report regarding committee and council meetings, the hybrid model. And this was pulled by Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Chair Bray. Yes, I had I guess a question, somewhat of a concern. And first of all, I would say that clearly there's indication that we're not through with COVID yet. I can tell you that recently I have seen more infection and cases than I have in the past 2.5 years. And I think some of council would be aware that certain organizations have been forced to cancel gatherings, cancel playoffs, cancel dinners because of the concern. So certainly I understand that we have to be careful going into a hybrid meeting and meeting in person session. The only suggestion I had is with phase 2, where we're indicating that members of the public could attend comment and question period in person. Generally, that has been a very low number of people at our meetings. And I didn't think it was reasonable that immediately after their question or comment that they would have to leave the building and travel back home, missing parts of the meeting only to view it later. I would like us to establish a date. Right now, it's kind of open, but I saw actually today in a media update that some of our neighbors are going back to in-person meetings. So I think for that portion, that those people, if they do attend comment and question period in person, that they should be able to stay in person for the entire meeting. And I think we're also in a position that we should be able to establish, with social distancing, what the number of the public would be able to attend once we do approve to attend in person. So those were my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you wish to comment, Madam Clerk?
It's really at council's will, if that's what council would like to do. Certainly, phase 3 is the limited staff attendance or limited public attendance. So when we get to phase 3, that's when we will set out seats for however many people will fit in the council chambers social distancing. But within phase 2, if council would like to change that so that the public members stay throughout the entire meeting, that's at your will, for sure.
I mean, I would support that. I think once they're in the building, they've screened, they're in. I don't know that there's a rush to leave right away. Is there thoughts at the table? Madam Mayor?
I was just going to say, I don't have an issue with it. I just, if we do that, I think we need to know how many people can come in. Distance, comment and question period is only 15 minutes. So how many people can you fit in that time slot? So I think you just have to think that through.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, I think it's essential though that whoever, if we did go to that, and it's fine, that they must be pre-registered, the 24 hours in advance like it would be. Just because again, the last thing we need is someone showing up saying, well, I want to talk at question period, and it's open, like it is open to the public, but there is some responsibility for the individual involved to make it known ahead of time. And so if that's the case and they do the screening and all that, then it becomes numbers. And as their worship said, if there's only 15 minutes, we can't have 45 questions in 15 minutes. It's physically impossible. And as Councillor Belanger pointed out earlier, not many people have taken advantage of question period during the COVID section. So, but it should be open as we can, bearing in mind every time we discuss opening the council chamber to people, there's a new wave of COVID. I'm not sure we're responsible for it. It just might be coincidental, but I do think it's worth considering. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I will read the motion. That the General Government Committee recommend to Council that it approve the hybrid format for committee and council meetings implemented through a phased-in approach when all respective safety protocols and meeting room arrangements as outlined in the April 14th, 2022 report have been secured. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Kinney, Mayor Byfolchi, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item to discuss is 6.2.8, Records and Information Management Specialist Report. re the Cook Dairy Farm at 1888 Klondike Park Road. And this was pulled by Councillor Kinney and Councillor Belanger. So go ahead, Councillor Kinney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To start off with, I have been called upon by several residents in regards to this historical place. I am familiar with it, as most residents are, and ones that have ever visited the sports park. And the report that was put forth was very, very well detailed. Especially I'm noting is the factor that there was some historical significance designated to the building itself. And as a result of that, I'm not going to be in favor of the motion of demolishing it. I feel that since the town has control of it, we should make efforts to do our best to keep something that has been in our community for a fair length of time. There are other examples of items that are in our community that, for lack of conversation, good reasons why we're going to not keep them. But for $58,000, and it's not pocket change by any stretch, I think the town should be looking at ways of shoring up this building and stabilizing it so that future residents can look at and see where we've come from as far as a community of many places and a farming community too. So for that, Madam Chair, I will be voting no on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kinney. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Chair Bray. As I, in addition to Councillor Kenny, will not be supporting the motion for demolition for a number of reasons. I have been contacted by a number of residents and also a number of members of the Cook family. And I'll provide a little more information that was provided me. But I also question the comments in the report. Well, it says, well, the farmhouse itself is not of any particular architectural value, historical. Sorry. Or any particular architectural value, historical or otherwise, by virtue of it being recognized with a heritage or a historical committee award, I think it does have historical value. It was built in 1890. But even that aside, today in Wasaga Beach, a full brick home that is inhabitable is worth about $750,000 to $800,000. Normally, the home is 25% property and 75% building. So a $308,000 investment would be restoring an asset that is worth over $600,000. And I'm certainly convinced that we could find proper utilization of that building for whether it be public meeting space or club space, or even, I don't know if there's any, if it's feasible for it to be rented, but certainly the historical side alone, it would be a good investment. I also believe that this could be done over time. Certainly right now, we could probably put up construction fencing around that facility and do nothing for the next year, build the emergency repairs into the next annual budget, and the remaining repairs could be done over 3 or 4 years. So I think it's feasible. I think that it makes financial sense. And I think there is significant historical value. In addition, the Cook family have indicated to me that they have conveyed to the town and conveyed to me that they would be willing to participate in initiating fundraising to assist in the costs of this, that they would personally be willing to assist in the cleanup of the facility and to do any minor kind of maintenance that they could, like they could do all the painting and that type of thing. They're willing to do that. So all those things considered, I believe this is an important part of our heritage and culture, and that it should be restored and retained. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe I saw Mayor Bifulci next.
Thank you. I can appreciate the Cook family's attachment to this property. I think over our years, we all have different homes that were important or special to us. However, once we sell those homes, and the Cook family was paid for this property, we don't really get to designate them after that, or try to not allow the current owner to do what they need to do with it. So the other piece for me that I was going to ask our CAO to speak to, but he's lost his Zoom, is the fact that, or the question of, I'm not sure this building actually met the historical designation when an award was given last term of council. So I have to go with what our experts are saying, and if it's not historical, it's not seen as any special architecture or anything else, I think we could find ourselves in a position of other buildings in town where we're expected to appease the owners from years ago. And I don't know that that's right. I think we as a town own it. We've got our costs in front of us. Staff have indicated there isn't a use for it, but that we will recognize the Cook family and the Cook farm. So I do support the recommendation as written.
Thank you, Councillor Wells.
I too will support the motion, partially, although the options section B, I believe, is the one that's recommended, which is the community gardens. I would be proposing that it be option A, which includes the gazebo. I think, we have the gazebo at Oakview Woods. We have the gazebo at Stonebridge. They are well used for events of various kinds, musical events, events. And so I think it would be an appropriate place to, in a sense, create another parkland with the gazebo as a part of it. And the gazebo, again, can be rented, leased, waived for outside groups who may wish to present something. I'm along the lines of the mayor's comments. We are focusing on the quote historical value, and yes, there is no question that it has a rich history. I've known the Cook family and many members of them for many years, but at the same time, there's a thing called prohibitive to repair, and we're looking at a structure that is original estimate is $300 and some odd thousand to make it habitable, for want of a better word. There's no indication at this point in time that that's going to be the end of it. Once you start taking down the walls and getting in a little deeper into it, we have no idea what the total cost of this is, and to place this onto the burden of the taxpayer, I think is not the appropriate way to go. The historical point that was raised came from the Historical Advisory Committee. It's not recognized in the Heritage. I forget the exact terms of the act, but the Heritage Act, which is where the official and formal designations come. To my knowledge, it never went to there. It was simply an award through the Historical Advisory Committee, which does not carry significant legislative authority for the property. So I just can't justify in my own mind $300,000 plus for it. And as Councillor Boulanger says, well, maybe we could sell it for $600,000. Well, again, that's all speculative. And right now, we I think have to look to what our financial limitations are.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, as the member who sits on the Historical Advisory Committee, I understand the concern here, but as Councillor Wells pointed out, it isn't under the Ontario Historical Act. It was the The award was given by the committee, which they give out two every year, or if possible, they do. And again, when you look at the location of the building, it's not that the town is into the, renting houses for profit. So you sit and you look at the location and you say, can it be used to add to the infrastructure at the sports park? It was used as a clubhouse for the snowmobile club for a period of time. It sat empty for a period of time. But as Councillor Wells indicated, and the report clearly states, once you start peeling back the walls, especially in something from 1890 on, the idea of asbestos being in there or other hazardous materials, I don't think urea formaldehyde foam insulation was used in 1888 or whatever it is, but subsequent renovations could have been done. So I look at it and I tend to agree. I think the gazebo would be a better approach to not only recognize the history of the farm and the family there, but also to add another piece of infrastructure to the sports park and make it just that much more habitable or more interesting for families to go to in the future. And those historical plaques we've been putting around town have had a lot of uptake, and so I think it's a natural fit. So as much as I'd love to save it at 308,000 plus something, the building was not architecturally unique. It's old, but there's a difference between architecturally unique. Its history can be saved in plaques and in gardens and it also says reuse some of the material to help. So those are my thoughts. So I will be supporting the gazebo section. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Watson, you were next.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bray. I agree with Councillor Wells and Foster's. I would like to see the gazebo there, and certainly to save some of the brick or something on site in the garden to commemorate the family. Well, what I feel is missing from this report is the fact that this property was not in the original village of Wasaga Beach. This part of Sunnydale came into Wasaga Beach about 1965 when the original village went from Beck Street to 18th Street and down River Road West. That was the village of Wasaga Beach, which our first council of Wasaga Beach was 1949, and that's when we started as an incorporated village. In 1965, we annexed Oakview Beach, went from 18th to 45th Street, and we took in the property that houses the Cook Dairy Farm. So it was not an original piece of Wasaga Beach. It's about 56 years old, being in the town right now. We have buildings in the original village up to 18th Street that are quite a bit older than that already. They've never been recognized, but they're here. So I'll be supporting the motion, but that's just one little piece of history that possibly should have been in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson, for the history update. Before I get to you, Councillor Belanger, I just wanted to say that it sounds like there's support for option A, just moving forward. Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Thank you. Just a couple points of clarification. Earlier, a member of council indicated we need to rely on the experts. I believe that this farmhouse was assessed by an engineering firm as to what was required to bring it up to standard. In addition to Councillor Foster's points, the requirement of proper insulation, I believe, was included in the $308,000. The mayor had requested our CAO to speak. I would like to understand how we came to the point of it not having any historical value, because when I look at many of the heritage homes in Collingwood, their significance has not necessarily been indicated to family history, but often to age. This building was built in 1890, and from an age perspective, it could in fact qualify, I believe, as a heritage building. Certainly, I'm very familiar in Halifax as well, that many homes are plaqued and designated heritage based on the age. So again, if the CAO can expand on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, I'm not the expert on historical matters. Our staff liaison secretary to the Historical Advisory Committee is our representative. She is the one who did the analysis with respect to the historical significance. She wasn't able to join us this morning. The clerk may have some comments with respect to the historical significance. What I do know, Madam Chair, is that yes, the building is old, and certainly that is acknowledged, but the architecture is not unique. So the style of farmhouse is very similar to farmhouses of that era that you see dotted across the landscape in this part of Ontario. So although it might be old, it's not unique. And I understand from a standpoint in terms of recognition, there are a number of factors that go into that, that type of recognition. And Madam Chair, that's the extent of my knowledge, and I'll defer to the clerk to see if she has any further knowledge on this subject.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair Bray. I don't have a lot to add to that other than I'll confirm what the CAO has said is correct. The award that was given to the family, they actually nominated themselves, and anybody can do that. It's a historical significance award that is given out by our committee. For instance, this year there was no nominations, so the committee just decided to choose something that they would like to just celebrate as something that is part of the history of the town. But the Heritage Committee, or a heritage significance, is a much different process. It's a legislative process. There's a lot of factors are involved in designating a property. In Wasaga Beach, we have one designated property, and that's Beck Square. And that was done a number of years ago. But there is a significant process that you would go through to designate something as heritage. And age is one factor, but there are a number of factors that would go into that. And so that's all I have to add to that. I will say to council that we have been working very closely with the Cook family on what they would like to see there. They have acknowledged that they understand the building likely cannot stay there. It's not their, of course, not their preference that it be torn down, but they do understand. I didn't put any photos in, or we didn't add any photos in of the interior of the building, but it is in quite disrepair, and I would say unsafe to walk through. It is quite, there could be more involved than the costing in this report is very estimated. So I think from what I understand from the heritage aspect of it, that process has not been considered whatsoever. It's just a matter of recognizing the family. And I think it's a great way to recognize the history of the family by doing two great interpretive panels that one recognizes their business and their of the dairy farm, and the other that recognizes the history of their family. And their preference was to have the bench turned around so that people who visited the property could look out on the sports park, because that was part of their family history, was watching people play sports and watching families interact. So they were wanting to see the garden more than anything else. But certainly a gazebo would allow people to visit the property and look at their family history. Nicely put out on a plaque. I don't know if you've seen some of the interpretive panels. They're done quite well with a lot of information there that people can soak up and then, really understand the history of what is there rather than just a structure.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Belanger.
My final comments is I don't know how many members or what member of the Cook family was involved in the process. I will tell you that I've been contacted by more than one member of the family that are not happy of the consideration of a demolition, that they certainly want the building retained, and they did not indicate to me that they would be satisfied with the garden. But the other thing I'm hearing is that we have, to this point, not received any expert or professional opinion on the heritage value of this building. And I would like to refer this back to staff to get a professional opinion before we would potentially demolish a building that in fact does have significant historical value. Thank you.
Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I was just wondering if Mr. CAO could speak to the discussions that he was in with what I was under the understanding of the representative for the family. George?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, so very early on, the town, my office was contacted by Carol Mudd, nee Cook. And she is one of many family members of the Cook family. And she was the designated representative of the Cook family. And as I said, it's a large family, and she was the spokesperson. And so I met with her on a couple of occasions, lots of telephone calls. Carly was engaged with her. So she was the representative of the family. And I know that individual members of the family are not happy with the staff recommendation. And I would say that Carol is quite saddened by the recommendation as well. However, on behalf of the Cook family, she recognizes the situation. She recognizes the state of the home, and it is what it is, unfortunately. And staff have tried to explain the current state, and given the alternatives, are of the view that this is the way to proceed. We did meet with Carol and her husband, and we went through the report. We gave her a copy of the report. Our facilities foreman went through the other aspects that would be required. And again, she was saddened, to hear that information. That was her home that she spent her formative years in. But she, at the end, recognized that that is the best option from the town's perspective. From the Cook family, they are reluctantly acknowledging that. I think that's a fair statement. But at this point in time, the decision rests with council with respect to how you wish to proceed. I think the Cook family through Carol has had input into the discussion, and we discussed alternatives when we met. And this was the outcome from staff's perspective. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this will be my final comment. Our CAO was, or had commented about it being similar to many, many farmhouses in Ontario, and I can't doubt that. Of that era, but I would state that as time goes on, it becomes significantly important because those similar houses are being taken up into subdivisions and everything else. And then my final comment is about Beck Square, that I'm hoping that we can do and save parts of that because of the want to develop our beachfront, and that's important too. And I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments, I just wanted to add a couple of things that that may or may not have been said. I understand the want of a few to save the building. However, I think the report indicates that it might be cost prohibitive. I believe it's a real personal history for the family and the family business, but less so for Wasaga Beach, as that business wasn't operating in Wasaga Beach for a number of years. As well, I think we as a council have to look at what purpose would we do we have for that building. And I don't think there's a real need for municipal office space out at Sports Park. And I think we all understand that if we were to make that a municipal space, the cost of renovations aren't the cost of renovating a house. They are, you know, suddenly accessibility comes into effect. Municipal buildings have much more requirements than residential houses. And I think to renovate a 100+ year house to make it municipally friendly would probably be a lot more than the initial estimates. So at the table, I heard support for option A, the creation of a gazebo in a garden area, and that will be the motion that I will be reading. Councillor Belanger?
Yes, I was going to say point of order. I had requested that we refer this back to staff for a professional opinion on the historical value. I'd like that voted on first, please.
Is there a seconder for that request to refer this back? Councillor Kinney? Okay, so then the first motion, I believe if I'm doing this correct, Madam Clerk, would be to refer this motion back to staff for a professional historical review?
Well, a professional opinion on the historical value of the building.
So then all in favor of that motion to refer this back? Opposed, if any? So then that motion fails on a vote of 2 to 5. So then moving to the original motion, that the Committee of the Whole receive for information the staff report titled Cook Dairy Farmhouse, 1888 Klondike Park Road, and that the committee recommends to council that staff be directed to pursue the demolition of the structure with the following option. Option A, creation of a gazebo and a garden area. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that motion passes 5 to 2. Thank you very much.
My apologies. Did someone move and second that motion?
That's what I was.
Oh, sorry, perhaps not. I was jumping ahead of myself. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Byfolchi, Councillor Wells. All in favor? So we have 5 and opposed. So then that motion passes 5 to 2. Thank you. Okay, moving along to, the next item on the agenda is item 6.4.1, the notice of motion from Mayor Byfolchi regarding the Town of Blue Mountains county composition. Would you like me to read this before you speak, or would you like to speak to this motion first?
Thank you. Maybe I'll just say a few words. I think the motion itself explains everything, but I'm bringing this motion forward in response to a motion that was approved by the Town of Blue Mountains, which is looking to create a new regional government that includes and implicates Wasaga Beach governance and taxpayers. There was no consultation with us or even a heads up that they were bringing that motion forward. I believe that if we sit in silence, it could be misunderstood as some sort of support for what the Blue Mountains is suggesting that they do. Wasaga Beach is in great shape. Government has been progressive and kept up on our infrastructure, responsible spending and investment, while others have fallen behind. Wasaga Beach residents taking on a government restructuring, the unknowns of that, as well as other municipalities' shortcomings, is not something that I can support. Mayor Saunderson, our local MPP Conservative candidate, declined to comment on this in the article in thesimco.com. But I do encourage people to reach out to him and ask him his stand on it, because if he's representing us at the province, I wonder if he's going to look to regionalize the area. So definitely some current concerns, and I hope I have support. I will move the motion.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Wells, are there any comments? Seeing none, I will read the motion. Whereas the Council of the Town of Blue Mountains enacted a motion pertaining to the town's displeasure of being part of Grey County due to reasons such as county council composition, amount of tax dollars flowing to the county, and what the town receives in return. And whereas the motion directed staff to review previous studies on the matter of regional governance models, as well as historical and projected budgets for the town in Grey County, and prepare a report back to council before the end of its term to consider. 1, the net cash flows that historically have occurred between the town of the Blue Mountain ratepayers and Grey County investments in and other transfers to the town of the Blue Mountains for infrastructure and other social service needs. And 2, the net impact of the town of the Blue Mountains ratepayers, both in terms of finances and service delivery, if the town were to be part of South Georgian Bay Regional Government, consisting of Meaford, Grey Highlands, Collingwood, Clearview, and Wasaga Beach, as opposed to continuing to be part of Grey County. And whereas there was no contact with the town of Wasaga Beach before the motion was put forward, and whereas there was no regard or consideration for Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, or Clearview taxpayers on the implications to these taxpayers of becoming part of a regional government with the town of Blue Mountains, with these taxpayers likely being asked to fund any funding shortfalls for this new governance model, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Wasaga Beach advises the Town of Blue Mountain that Wasaga Beach enjoys being part of the County of Simcoe government structure and has no desire to be part of the review. And be it further resolved, the Council of the Town of Wasaga Beach indicate to the Town of the Blue Mountain that it will strongly oppose any regionalization efforts. And be it further resolved that if the Town of Blue Mountains wishes to join the County of Simcoe, that it be advised that it follow the proper process to do so. And be it further resolved that this motion be circulated to the towns of Collingwood and Meaford and the Township of Clearview and Grey Highlands requesting their support. And be it further resolved that this motion be circulated to the Town of Blue Mountains and Grey County Council. I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The next part of our meeting will be in closed session. I will read the motion and then maybe ask for a 5-minute break. So resolve that pursuant to section 239(2)(a) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the April 14th, 2022 coordinated committee meeting will move into closed session to discuss the security of the property of the municipality or the local board. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Kinney, Mayor Byfolchi, all in favor? Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. And if we could reconvene in camera at 10:20, I would appreciate it. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. I just, on the closed session piece, I'm not at my home and I can't vouch for the security of my location. I'm inside a house that I can't, although they don't speak English, but I just feel it's inappropriate for me to be in the closed session because I can't guarantee the security of the conversation. So I'll be back for the CAO's report afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Okay, so we will reconvene at 10:20.
And we're in open session, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you and welcome back. I will note that Councillor Foster is not with us at the moment. He did not join us in camera as he was not confident of the strength of the security of his internet connection. So returning from in camera, we have a motion that reads, the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee received the report from the CAO provided in closed session pertaining to a beachfront negotiations for information. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wells, Councillor Kinney, all in favor? And that motion passes 6-0. And the last item on the agenda is our adjournment at 11:20. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Are we going directly into special council?
Yes.
Yes, we do have a special council meeting right after this meeting.
We'll need a little bit of a break, if you don't mind, about 10
That's
minutes.
fine, but we don't need to shut down Zoom and start again, or do we?
Yes. New Zoom link.
Yeah. Oh, it's a new, okay.